Well, hi and welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. It's good to have you along. Thank you for clicking on that link. We're continuing a series of videos on some basic functions of the activated version of ChessBase Light 2009, the kind that you get if you purchase an activation key and enter it into your software, as well as basic functions of ChessBase 10. There's some things you can only do in the activated version of ChessBase Light 2009 that you can't do in the free version that are also basic functions of the full ChessBase program. So I'm using ChessBase 10 to illustrate these things. They do apply to both programs. We're looking at the desktop screen of ChessBase 10. You may recall that in the last ChessBase workshop we created a new database. It's right here. It says Workshop Vid Database. We double click on it and we're surprised to find no games found. Well, someone might be surprised. I'm not, because I know it's a new database. Excuse me, we haven't put any games in it yet. We're going to look at a couple different ways to get games into your database over the next few videos. One way to do it is to enter games yourself. I think one of the first things that people do when they get ChessBase or any of the Fritz family of playing programs and find out that there are database functions is they create a database of their own games. I know that's what I did back in, it was like 1992, I think, when I got my first copy of this stuff. And first thing I did, got out all my tournament notepads that had records of all my tournament games, and I just started banging them into a database. So when you double click on the icon for a database and you get your list, of course there's no games in it yet, you can put games into the database very easily by going up here and clicking on this button. It says open a new board in this database. Now there's a couple of different ways to put games into a database. You could actually come here, click on that same button right here in the desktop, click on this and get the board as well. What I recommend that you do, though, is double click on the database that you want to save the game into. Double click on that icon to pull up the game list for that database. You can save a game literally into any database. We'll look at that here after a bit, but if you open up the game list and then click on the little black and white chessboard button, what happens is this. You come over to the file menu. When you're done, don't do it yet, but when you're finished entering moves, you go to the file menu and you'll notice there are two save commands. One says save game as, the other says save, has an arrow, and has the name of the database that you just opened up the list for. This is really big because when you go to save a game, if you click on this command that I've got highlighted right now, the one that says save and gives the name of the specific database, you know exactly where that game wound up. You know that if you double click on the icon for the database that you want to save that game into, that if you start by double clicking on that icon, you're going to be saving the game into the correct database. If you go to save game as and click on it, it may take you to another folder. It's going to be whatever folder you used last, basically, and you may end up saving that game into the wrong database. So then when you go back to, in my case, Workshop Vid Database and double click on the icon, that game may not be there. And suddenly I'm tasked with finding out where I saved that game. I may have no idea what database I saved that game into, particularly if I'm working real late at night or real early in the morning and my eyes are barely open. I'm not going to remember it. So my recommendation is to always start, if you want to save a game into a database that you're going to input that game yourself, start by double clicking on the icon for the database into which you want to save that game. Then click on the little button up here to open up a new board in the database and then begin entering your moves. And that way when you go to save it, if you select this command, save with the arrow and the name of a database, that game is going to go into the correct database. You don't have to worry about saving it in the wrong place. My kids are teenagers. I have twin boys, and one of them, they learn to play chess at a very early age, and one of them has just gotten re-interested in it. They kind of left it for a while, and suddenly he's really big on chess. And although we're studying primarily, well, he's studying, one thing that you will learn if you have children, or when you have children, is they will listen to anybody before they will listen to you. Kids don't listen to their parents. So I just gave them some books to look at and said, here, you're on your own. Ask, if you have questions, ask me. So I'm trying to steer him a little bit, and one of the things we have looked at are tactical problems and endgames. I'm pushing him in that direction. However, we do look at a few openings from time to time, and he's looking at some of the 1800s gambit openings, and of course the Danish gambit is one of those. So what we're going to put here is we're going to put in the opening moves to the Danish gambit. Basically, this is going to act as a review on how to enter moves into ChessBase. What you do is you click on a piece, and you just move the mouse down to it, and you'll see right here I picked up this pawn. Now here's an interesting thing, by the way. What the software does, and it just now did it, by the way, I didn't really want it to, but what it does is if you click on a piece, you see a square just got highlighted. E4 is highlighted. What the software tries to do is pick the most likely candidate space for that particular piece or pawn that you just clicked on. It's called HUMAS. It's an intelligent move entry system, and it can really speed up entering moves. It's right probably 50 to 70% of the time. Not always, but it does do a pretty good job. So if you click on a piece and you see a square get highlighted, you can just let go of the piece. I'll show you here by clicking on the D pawn. D4, it's hard to see, but D4 just got highlighted. If I immediately let off the piece, it just shoots right to that square. I don't even have to move it. So you can work it that way, or you can pick a piece and physically move it. Another way to do it is if you click on a square, you'll notice that the C pawn just got highlighted. That's another function of HUMAS. If you click on a square, it will try to pick the piece that's most likely to go to that square. And in this case, the C pawn looks to be the most likely. It is where we're going, by the way. So you click on the square, let off the mouse button, and the software does the rest. I can click on C3 again, and we get D takes C3 once I let off the button. And we're going to come here, and we come here, and then the bishop's going to take, and then D5 occurs. And we have bishop takes d5, knight f6, and of course the surprise bishop takes the pawn, and the king is now unable to castle. And queens get exchanged. We get another lovely check down here. Queen comes back here to block. Bishop takes, knight takes, and now we have the basic tabia of a Danish gambit variation. This is what we want to save into our database. Now, obviously, if you're doing putting in one of your own games from a tournament, you're going to put in the whole game. All I want to save at this point is just this opening position. So what I've done is I've made all the moves I want to make. Now I want to save it. So I go to the File menu and go to Save, and of course I want to save it into Workshop Vid Database as we've previously discussed. So I click on that, and now we get this dialog. This is all kind of fun. You can put all kinds of information into this dialog. Typically, the way you would do this would be you would put in the last name followed by, whoops, somehow I hit caps lock. Let's try this again. You would put in the last name and the first name or first initial of a player, and then do the same for black. You could put in a tournament name, etc. However, this isn't a game. This is just the opening sequence. So I'll use the white last name dialog just to put in the name of the opening. Danish Gambit. I'm going to leave the rest of these spaces blank. There was no tournament. There is no result. You can leave in year, month, and day if you want to. By the way, you'll notice that the year, month, and day do not match what is in the lower left corner of your Windows Media Player, and that is because I am behind. I'm doing a January video, but it's the 1st of February. I'm sorry. I got behind. I apologize. One thing that's filled out automatically is the ECO code. This is really cool. If you put in enough moves of an opening, generally, once you get 5, 6, 7 moves, you get to a defining position of an opening, ChessBase will identify that opening by Encyclopedia of Chess Openings code and drop that directly into the save game dialog, so you don't have to worry about it, which is really neat. C21 is indeed the ECO code for the Danish Gambit. At this point, that's really all I need. I know it's the Danish Gambit. I've got an ECO code. Year, month, and day, not a big deal, but I'll just go by year. I don't really need a month and day, so I'll uncheck month and day. We're going to have a year in there as well. It's really about all we need at this point, so we click OK. And it looks like nothing happened. But if we go down here, let me find the correct, there we go. we go back to our game list. And by the way, you can jump between Windows and ChessBase that easily just by clicking on buttons on your Windows taskbar at the bottom of the screen. Check it out. We have Danish Gambit. It says line because we did not put in a result. There's 10 moves. ECO code of C21. Date's 2010. There we go. We now have a game in our database. That simple. Other things you won't see, we didn't put in any ELO values. We didn't put in a black player name. There was no tournament, no variations commentary, no medals. I didn't put my name in as the annotator. There were no annotations. So there's going to be things that are going to be blank, but it's real easy to look at a game list and pick this out. Danish Gambit, and some other information there that we've previously discussed. So there you go. That's all there is to it. That's all you need to know to be able to start entering your own games into a ChessBase database. Very simple. That's one way to get games into a database. There are others. We're going to look at them in the future. However, my plan at this point, the next time around, in the next ChessBase workshop, is we're going to talk about the very important difference between save game and replace game. Now, we've covered this before in some of my written articles, but some people still get hung up on this, and it's a very important concept. So the next time around in ChessBase Workshop, we're going to look at the difference between save game and replace game, and that way you know the difference and you don't end up making mistakes and messing up your database by having extraneous games saved into it. More on that later. In the meantime, have fun with this. Go in, start your own database, put your own games into it, and then next time around in ChessBase Workshop, we'll look a little bit closer at saving and replacing games. Until then, have fun.